Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Monday. I hope you all are doing well. We've just had the breaking news from Everton that Duncan Ferguson has left the football club. News that come to a bit of a shock to me, to be honest with you, and not necessarily because of what it actually is in terms of Duncan Ferguson leaving, because obviously there were big question marks around Duncan Ferguson's future in January when obviously he didn't get the job and it was given to Frank Lampard. We didn't really hear much from Dunk post that. Obviously we know he had a massive role to play under Carlo Ancelotti. Again, his role under Rafael Benitez seemed to be, a little bit less significant, albeit still being the assistant manager. And then obviously under Frank Lampard, although he was obviously a massive part of, the coaching team and being the assistant to Frank Lampard, there were obviously big question marks about whether or not he would go and pursue a career in being a first team manager himself. He'd been linked with a couple of clubs over the last couple of months or so, before the season had ended. Blackburn being one that he was quite heavily linked with, albeit I don't think there was much solid interest there. But it just sort of randomly come out of nowhere today, didn't it? And I suppose, listen, with it being the first day that the players are back in pre-season training, and obviously we've seen all of the, the images and stuff of James Tarkowski in training, Yerry Mina back, Jean-Philippe Gabam, Ben Godfrey, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, everybody effectively. I don't think there's many players there that are currently in the Everton squad that aren't at Finch Farm. Anthony Gordon may be one of them because he may have been given an extra few days worth of leave because of international fixtures he played during the summer. Vitaly Mikalenko is back in training. He was given a couple of extra days because of the international games he played in the summer, but he opted to come back early instead, which just shows the level of commitment that Vitaly Mikalenko has, which is absolutely unbelievable. And that's not a dig at Anthony Gordon or any of the other players that have been given extra time, off because of their international games. It just shows how committed Vitaly Mikalenko is to being ready for the new season. But, one face I think we all expected to turn up at Finch Farm this morning was Duncan Ferguson. And, whether or not he did or didn't, I don't know. But what we certainly know is that he won't be turning up tomorrow because he has officially left Everton Football Club. He's done a really, really heartfelt message to the fans with EvertonFC.com. Everton's full statement says, Everton can confirm that Duncan Ferguson has left his role as first team assistant manager to pursue his managerial ambition. The club legend inducted as an Everton Giant in 2011 after two memorable stints as a player at Goodison Park, in which he captained the side under three different managers, returned to the Blues to coach in the academy that same year, and in 2014, after working as under-18s assistant manager and gaining his UEFA Pro coaching licence, was promoted to a position within the first team. Obviously, the statement goes on and reads some of Duncan Ferguson's accolades at Goodison. Obviously, it mentions Frank Lampard describing Dunk as an Everton legend, somebody who the players respect, the club respect, and the fans respect. Dunk said, it's been a massive decision for me, an incredibly difficult one, but I need to move on. To take that next step in my career and look for that new challenge. Being a caretaker manager has given me confidence to step into management. The club have been fantastic with me. They've supported me all the way through my journey. You've got the chairman who has supported me as a player and as a coach. He's been amazing with me, so I would like to thank him. And then there's people like our CEO Denise, who has been fantastic. It really is a caring club with some proper people in it. They're massive Evertonians. And of course then there's the fans. They've been incredible to me since I came in '94. We've got a strong bond. The relationship we've had over the years has been special. They know how much they mean to me. I'll always love them. He then went on to say, it was a difficult season. It was difficult last season, but the club is definitely heading in the right direction. It's a fantastic club. The team is in good hands with Frank as a manager. He's been first class and he wanted me to stay on. I can't speak highly enough of Frank. He's a great man and a great young manager. I'm sure he'll do very well at Everton. There's also the new stadium on the horizon, which is going to be unbelievable from the club. He did then go on and say that, he was looking forward to being a part of the club when, the new stadium is built and moving into the new stadium. And that was something that, he'd planned for and he'd hoped for, but obviously things change. And then Dunn goes on to finish by saying, I'll be there being Goodison. I'll be there as a supporter, or Bramley-Moore. I'll be there as a supporter. My kids have got season tickets, and I'll be looking forward to coming back. So a really, really, really heartfelt message there from Duncan Ferguson. Obviously, as you would expect for somebody who has the relationship that he has with with Evertonians and with Everton Football Club. And as I said, there'll be a lot of people who were extremely upset today, and there'll be a lot of people who were extremely shocked as well. And again, it's a difficult one to take. Really, I understand it, and I understand that for Duncan, this is probably the right decision. And ultimately, listen, if Duncan's ambition is to be the Everton manager at any point in his managerial future, and by the Everton manager, I mean the first team Everton manager on a permanent basis, on a contract, not a caretaker manager for a couple of games. If that's what Duncan's ambition is, if that's what Duncan wants, then he realistically he had to leave the football club to go and seek that experience, because it was very, very unlikely, especially under this current owner and this current regime. It was always going to be very, very unlikely that Duncan was given the job without going and seeking that experience, without going and managing somewhere else, maybe in the Championship or maybe over in Scotland or in Europe elsewhere, and getting that experience of actually running a football club day in, day out for a prolonged period of time, as opposed to, for the stint over a couple of week period. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that is what Duncan Ferguson wants. I've got no doubt in my mind that Duncan Ferguson's end game, if you like, which is a saying that a lot of people like to use nowadays. I've got no sort of doubt in my mind that Duncan Ferguson's end game is being the manager of Everton Football Club, be it at Goodison before we move into Bramley-Moore, or be it in Bramley-Moore. Now, obviously, those conversations aren't really to be had at the moment, because we've got Frank Lampard, we're going into a new season. Frank obviously done really, really well to get us out of the situation that we were in at the end of last season, and there's not by any sense of the imagination any conversations of Frank Lampard leaving the football club at the moment. But we all know what Duncan Ferguson wants, and we all know Duncan Ferguson wants to manage Everton Football Club at some point in the future. Duncan hasn't been quiet in admitting that in the past. So for that to have been the case, as I said, especially under this current regime, it was clear that he was going to have to go out and get some experience somewhere else. And I think that was made clear in January, and I think that's why we've seen this decision now. Some people could say, well, why didn't he leave when Carlo left and went and pursued the managerial career? Why didn't he leave when, ex-manager left or Y-manager left? But I think it became quite evident when Benitez was sacked, and it was seemingly, and as I said, I say seemingly because you shouldn't believe everything you read in the media, and you shouldn't believe everything you see on, Sky Sports News or in newspapers or whatever. But it was seemingly, if you believe what we read, it was between Duncan Ferguson, Frank Lampard, and Vitor Pereira, and the club decided to go with Frank Lampard. Now, you've got an Everton legend there who has already got a relationship with the fans, already was inevitably going to create that bond. And I know Frank Lampard has come in and done that wonderfully as well. But there was no guarantee that Frank Lampard was going to be able to do that. Whereas you had Duncan there, who obviously already had that relationship, already had that bond, already had that, that love for the fans, and we had that love for him as well. And the club still opted to go with Frank Lampard. And you look at it and you think, well, why did the owner choose Frank Lampard over Duncan Ferguson? It was probably because of the experience Frank Lampard has got as a manager. I think had Duncan Ferguson had the same experience as Frank Lampard did, I think Frank Lampard wouldn't be at Everton now, and it would be Duncan Ferguson being the first team manager. So I think that was a real sort of maybe a wake-up call in this situation. As it wasn't like you've got Duncan Ferguson and Carlo Ancelotti, and you're thinking, well, it's Carlo Ancelotti. You're evidently going to go with Carlo Ancelotti, aren't you? When Duncan managed the game against Chelsea at Goodison Park, and it was one of the best experiences I've had as an Evertonian, probably just behind the game against Crystal Palace. Had Carlo Ancelotti not been in the frame, Duncan Ferguson may well have got it then, but Carlo Ancelotti come in the frame, and we couldn't really say no to somebody of his quality. Then you had Benitez, and the excuse was always, well, he's a Champions League winning manager, he's won this, he's won that, he's won the other, he's won league titles. With the Lampard situation, I think it was a little bit different, because Frank Lampard is still a young manager with a lot to prove, was very, very inexperienced in the situation that Everton were in at the time. And maybe it acted as a bit of a wake-up call for Dunk to think, if I ever want to manage this football club, if I ever want to, achieve my dream, which is, and maybe that isn't his dream. Maybe his dream was just to manage us for a period. Maybe his dream was just to manage us for one game. Maybe his dream was Chelsea at home, a couple of years ago when Marco Silva had been sacked and we won that game 3-1 against Frank Lampard's Chelsea, ironically. Maybe that was Duncan's dream, and maybe being the manager of Everton isn't the end game for him. But I think it's fair to assume that is what Duncan would want in the future. And maybe January was a little bit of a wake up for him to think, do you know what? Yeah, I probably do need to go out there and get some experience. I probably do need to go out there and earn me stripes, maybe go and manage in the Championship. Derby are looking for a manager now, obviously, after Wayne Rooney has left them. We know, obviously, Blackburn were heavily incested, a number of weeks ago. So, yeah, it's sad. It is sad because Duncan Ferguson is Everton Football Club. Duncan Ferguson is the definition of the word legend. Duncan Ferguson is a leader. He is somebody that it resonates with every one of us because he's an Evertonian. As I said, that game against Chelsea, was it in 2019? Was it? It was just unbelievable because it was watching an Evertonian, watching one of us manage the football club and achieve their dream and do it in a really good fashion as well. And you see the respect that the players have got for Duncan. You see the love that the players have got for Duncan. I'm sure Dominic Calvert-Lewin will have something to say about it because Dom's been very, very open about the help Duncan has given him over the years. As other strikers that have been at Everton Football Club, Romelu Lukaku has given a lot of credit to Duncan Ferguson in the past. We know Carlo Ancelotti spoke very, very highly of Duncan Ferguson, and there was even rumours that he wanted to bring him over to Real Madrid. So there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Duncan Ferguson will go on and be a successful manager. Not only because he's got the UEFA Pro licence, but also because when you've got somebody like Carlo Ancelotti, who is one of the, if not the most decorated football manager of all time, when you've got somebody like him who is speaking very, very highly of Duncan and saying, he's a great coach, he knows this, he knows that, he knows the other, and as I said, if rumours are to be believed, even wanting him to go over and work with him in Madrid, then he's clearly got something. You've got Frank Lampard there who, as the interview reads, like I've just said, didn't want Duncan Ferguson to leave the football club. So, it wasn't like there was a falling out between Duncan and Frank, which is good. It's good that Frank ultimately wanted him to stay. I think that shows that Frank Lampard understands the importance of having somebody like Duncan Ferguson at the football club, somebody who knows the football club as much as Duncan Ferguson does. And yeah, it's a sad day. It is a sad day because ultimately a club legend has left the football club, but I think when you actually read into the situation, when you actually understand the whys and the wherefores and the reasons, you look at it and you think it's probably for the best. Now, there's no guarantee that Duncan Ferguson will return to Everton in the coming years as first team manager. Of course, there's no guarantee of that, because there's no guarantee of anything in this world, and especially within football. However, if Duncan goes and does a good enough job somewhere, say it is at a Derby or it is at I don't know, maybe another Championship club, maybe over in Scotland, then there's absolutely no reasons to, if Everton were to need a new manager in coming years, why Duncan Ferguson's name wouldn't be on that list if he goes out and gets 2-3 years worth of experience somewhere and ultimately does well and is successful. I'm sure he'd be one of the first names in fact that's brought up to be put on the list if that's the case. So yeah, it's sad. It was heartbreaking reading the message and seeing the interview and hearing Duncan speak, because as I said, listen, Duncan's one of us. He's an Everton legend, and the fact that he's left the football club is sad, but ultimately it gives him the chance now to go and prove himself. It gives him the chance now to go and show himself and everybody else that he can do it as a manager, so that if he is ever in the race to become Everton manager again, we won't be sitting here saying, yeah, but he's got no managerial experience, he's not proved it. I personally believe with all my heart that Duncan Ferguson would have been a success as Everton manager, because I believe he's a good enough coach to be a success as Everton manager. But his biggest criticism was he's got no experience whatsoever. We can't afford to take the risk on a manager with no experience, and you can't really argue against that. So now, obviously not now, but in a couple of years, if he goes out and he gets that experience and he does well, that sort of question mark is all of a sudden answered. That's put to one side. All of a sudden we're sitting here saying, well, he has got experience because he's just gone out and he's just got experience. So yeah, it is sad, but ultimately I think for Duncan's future as a manager or within football, whether or not he ends up back at Everton is irrelevant to the point that for Duncan's future as wanting to be a manager of a football club, this was the right decision. It also opened the door for Everton to go and bring in a new assistant manager. Now, that might be somebody that is promoted from within the club by Frank Lampard, or it might be somebody who Frank Lampard is wanting to bring into the club from elsewhere, externally. We know Anthony Barry's name has been bandied about an awful lot over the last couple of months or so. Obviously at Chelsea currently, we were heavily interested in bringing him in with Frank in January, but that didn't happen. Now that it's the summer and things have changed at Chelsea, maybe Anthony Barry would be up for a new challenge. And Anthony Barry, by the way, is an absolutely fantastic coach, and a fantastic. He's been around football for a long time and knows exactly what he's doing. So if it opens the door for him to come to the football club, then I do think that's a positive for Everton, because he's a great coach. I'm not saying, we should have replaced Duncan Ferguson with Anthony Barry anyway. I'm just saying that now Dunk's gone to pursue his dream, we've got to replace that role. And if you can go and get Anthony Barry, then I think he'd be a great addition. I really, really do. But yeah, it's sad, but I suppose it's news that, again, some people will have been expecting, some people will have not been expecting. But for me, it's not like we'll never see Duncan Ferguson again. Duncan Ferguson will be at Goodison Park, I'm sure, many a times over the coming years before we move into Bramley-Moore, either as a fan or maybe even returning before we move to Bramley-Moore in some form of managerial role. Who knows? But for now, he's going to go and get a job, a managerial job, which I think he won't have any real trouble getting, given his experience and given his qualifications. And it's now up to Dunk to go out and prove himself, isn't it? And see what he can do as a first team manager. And if it goes right, then maybe he'll be back at Everton in a couple of years, as our first team manager. Who knows? Hopefully we don't get to that, because hopefully Frank Lampard is unbelievable for the next 4 or 5 years, wins us all the trophies he can possibly win us, and Frank Lampard never leaves because he's great. But we all know football is it's very difficult for football to go like that, isn't it? So we'll wait and see. Get your comments in anyway in the live comments before we do finish up. Everton Till I Die says, sad day. Louis says, I reckon he's going to Derby, maybe. OVV Key says, hope you're well. Cam said when Lampard was hired that Dunk had to make a choice, stay at Everton to be a coach or go away and try and be a manager. Nice to see his ambition, spot on. DGST says, sad day, current club, ball players and a lot of fans don't deserve him. Anyone who had a go at him and questioned him is a... Well, I don't think there's many people that questioned him, to be fair. I don't think you can question his ambition, to be honest. I think it's got to be admired. Alright, Cam, what's up, fellow Blues? What's happening, Mighty Blues? Sean says, that's sad, but hopefully he left his heart at Everton. His heart will always be at Everton, mate. Legends, good luck, Dunk. EFC says, Gary. Peter says, future Everton manager, so I know he'll be back. All the best, Dunk. Yeah, I've got no doubts that he'll be back at Everton in some capacity over the next few years. Whether it's first team manager, there's obviously a lot to happen before that's the case, including Duncan going away and being successful wherever he goes, and Everton needing a new manager at that point as well, which hopefully we don't, because as I said, hopefully Frank Lampard is the man for the future. But he will be back in some form. Gary says 4 years and he'll be our manager. Eugene says, I think Duncan Ferguson will move out to Scotland again, maybe. The Mighty Blues says, sad day, man. Another person who actually cares about the football club walks out the door. I'm sceptical as to whether we will replace that passion and desire to do the best for the club. It's just sad. Yeah, that's a good point as well. Duncan Ferguson next. Ruzod says, Eugene Celtic says, sad day, but I wish Dunk well, and thanks for the memories. He will be back. Of course he'll be back. Wonderlust says, Dunk really was a living extension of the club. I wish him well, whatever he does next. Spot on, my mate. Tom says, proper gutted about the news, but I know, but he does need to get experience. I think he'll go to Scotland, says Archie. I actually think he will go to the Championship, to be honest with you. It's a big decision for him to obviously go and move over to somewhere else. He's got a home here, he's got a family here, everything seems to be settled here. I actually think he would prefer to go to a team in the Championship. TheMightyBlues says, as much as I'm gutted about Dunk leaving, I'm equally intrigued as to how he does now. Wish him well and always keep an eye on it. Of course, mate, and I think that's the big step now. Is I'm sure wherever he goes, we'll all be keeping an eye on their scores every weekend. We'll all be, watching the games of whoever he's managing on the television when they're on, because ultimately, if Dunk wants to become the Everton manager in the future, which, as I said, I believe he does, then it's a test for him. It's a big test for him. And listen, Dunk might go to Derby and do really, really well there, and then the Everton job might come up, and he might. Derby's just an example, by the way. I'm not saying he's linked with Derby or he's going to Derby, but Derby as an example might do really, really well there. Then the Everton job might come up, and he might go, actually, do you know what? No, I'm gonna stick it out here, a little bit like Wayne Rooney did, even though Wayne Rooney then left in the summer, which was a bit mad. You don't know. There's many different variables that could come up, but yeah, we'll all be watching wherever he goes. I'm sure we will. Kevin says his days at Everton were over. Should have left 3 years ago. Good luck, bud. Interesting shout. Ryan says, hi, what's happening? Baked Toffee says, probably good to wish the best for Dunk. I'll be supporting him as my second team now. Can't watch this. I hear you giving a penalty away yesterday. Well, basically, I slid in for the challenge in the box. I won the ball. I got a full foot on the ball, and a member of the other team, whose profession will remain unsaid, because, decides to throw himself on the floor. But if you know the profession, then you'll probably understand that that's typically what they do. Not specifically throwing themselves on the floor, but, getting cheap things. So, yeah, there you go. School of Science says, good to see him leave. Hope you're doing well, Cam. Not too bad. And Man United have signed him to replace Ronaldo, says John. Imagine it. But yeah, there you go. Look, only a short one today. Just wanted to do a quick video just to address it. It is sad, but ultimately I think it's for the best for all parties, for Dunk, for Everton, for his career, for his managerial career, and obviously for us to ultimately see if he, wherever he goes, if he can be a success, and then that'll be a determining factor as to whether or not he manages this football club in the future, if he wants to, of course, if he wants to. But yeah, there you go. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you watch live, massive thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below, and we'll get involved with as many of them as possible. We do need to do another live stream either later today or tomorrow, talking about just the latest news. I've had some more stuff on the Peter Kenyon stuff, and a couple of other transfer rumours and stuff like that we're going to get into. Ed says, have I read somewhere, Cam, that Dunk is as qualified as anyone can be? Yeah, he's got the UEFA Pro licence, so he's actually, I think, unless this has changed, but whilst this person was at the club, he was actually more qualified than David Ancelotti. So there you go. Big Toffee says, likes up, everyone. Cheers, Cam. Thank you very much, mate. Big thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. Let us know your thoughts in the comments if you're watching this YouTube video. Sad, not too bothered, or happy that Duncan can now go and get some experience and see how he does. But there you go. Big thanks for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you after.